Live from St. Augustine, it's Saturday Night Live. Welcome, everybody.
I like it.
You like that?
Yes, sir.
Hey, we're in for a real treat today. We have Dr. Ernie Panza, a chiropractor who started in the late 60s practicing?
Early 60s.
Early 60s? You don't look like it. It looks like late 60s. But we're in for a real treat. Professional speaker, author, father of a chiropractor, servant, veteran, a lover of humanity. And please help me welcome Dr. Ernie Panza.
Well, it's really a pleasure being here, Joe. Thank you, or Jay rather. Thank you. Thank you for the great introduction. And Lee's there in the back. Lee's from Korea, and and I should say South Korea. Okay, put it that way. And she's great. We've been together only a few months, and she's been absolutely amazing. So anyway, the reason I came is because Jay asked me to come and talk a little bit, and I want to make it as simple, as easy, and as friendly as we possibly can. I have some literature that you can take to pass out, hand out. I have books over here. This book, this is my 26th book that I've written, and it's little for one simple reason. I have written the books that are like over 300 pages, and my friends say, look, I love your books, but they're too much to read. I don't want them. So I went to a 54 books ago, I went to a 50-page book, and now they sell them. On the back, it shows what I do. I do pull-ups for the veterans, and it explains here that the money that I earn from the books goes to the veterans. And I also give the books out to different veterans organizations. Lee and I this past Saturday were just at the Veterans Museum and Education Center in Volusia County, and we're doing a pull-up program for them coming up. Probably we're doing it on the 4th of July. We have 3 to do on the 4th of July. One for that organization, one for the Purple Heart, and one for VFW for Ormond Beach. So the books are normally $15. You can get 2 today for $20. You'll like it. If you read it, you'll figure out, hey, this book should be in my office. And I'll tell you what, it should be given it to new patients because it explains chiropractic, explains what we do, and talks a lot about universal intelligence, which most of us in chiropractic talk about universal intelligence. And the innate intelligence, which simply is universal intelligence, is God or wisdom or within. And of course, that's what the whole concept of the innate intelligence, and it's God within. And the power that made the body heals the body. BJ said life flows from above down and inside out. He also said that chiropractic is separate and distinct. And so what I thought I would talk a little bit, now we got a lot of DE people here, so I could almost skip over the concept of the whole process of the history of chiropractic. I was going to talk a little bit about the history and play some, and we can still do that, play a little game of who did what, when, who, how, where, and anybody that raises their hand and answers the question gets a free book. So I guess we'll start out. Let me back up just a second. We're going to do 3 parts. One would be the history of chiropractic. The second one will be the philosophy of chiropractic, and the third one is how you can go out and get new patients. And I've got several different ways to tell you about that I worked on for many years with different offices. I practiced in almost 6 different states, and I've had twice that many offices. And I practiced GPC, God, patient, and chiropractic in most of those, and works so well when you're single. When you have a family, it's difficult because patients will pull money out of their pocket and they'll have a 10 and a 5. Guess what goes in the box? The 5. You know, it's a great concept. And what we did with it is we had a lot of patients. We were seeing over 200 patients a day, sometimes hitting 300. But the problem was, first of all, that the money problem, because they're not going to pay more than they can really afford. But we seen so many patients only because we saw families. 5 people coming into the office was just, they were paying the same price as paying for 1 or less. And it was way back before there was Medicare and insurances. So GPC practice works wonderful, but it's difficult to feed a family on it. And I wish, after Mary died in '92, I went totally GPC. And I tell you a real quick story. I moved to the mountains in Virginia, a little place called Fancy Gap. and there was a lady that had an antique store, and her son was a friend of mine. I go visit Faye quite often, and so we'd go visit Faye, and I'd talk to her, and she said, "Why don't you rent my little house down the road?" And I said, "Faye, right now I have 3 houses. I flipped 9 houses in 3 years there." And I said, I have 3 houses. And she says, "Yeah, well, I'll make you a good deal on it." I said, "Faye, I got too many houses now. My bank won't lend me any more money. There's 2 places I'd like to buy, but James did everything he could to get me more money because he was a good friend of the president of the bank. This little town called Hillsville, just outside of Fancy Gap." So anyway, she kept saying, "I'll make you a good deal, make you." I said, "So how much is your good deal?" She says, $100 a month. $100 a month. Now you can practice GPC that way because I lived there and I had a practice there for $100 a month. So I had a basket like it was sitting back there on my desk, and people just dropped in the basket whatever they want. We took no x-rays, and if they needed x-rays, I'd send them from actually Fancy Gap down to the bottom of the mountain in North Carolina where Andy Williams, or not Andy Williams, whatever the guy's name, I can't think of it right now, it'll come to me. 80 years old, I'm still slipping, I'm not slipping much, but maybe a little bit. So anyway, to answer that, GPC, who knows who started GPC? A trivia question. Dr. Warner out of New York. And next time, raise your hand, you could win a book. Okay, we all know most of the story really about D.D. Palmer, B.J. Palmer. We all think there was 3 people though, or 2 people rather, who really started chiropractic. Anybody know the 3rd person? Want a hint?
The preacher?
Mabel?
Mabel.
Mabel was fantastic. We'll talk about Mabel in a little while.
Had to be a Palmer, right?
Palmer.
Was there somebody?
There was D.D. Palmer, B.J. Palmer, and a 3rd person.
Harvey Lillard?
Got it. Raise your hand next time.
Oh, okay.
No, take a book before you leave. Yeah, Harvey Lillard. Think about this. Harvey Lillard, we know that was a janitor in the building where D.D. Palmer had his office. What was the name? What was the name of the building Palmer had his
The
office?
Ryan Building.
Okay. All right, you got a book. How many rooms did it have?
30.
42.
No.
42 room clinic. Can you believe that? And when D.D. started into chiropractic, basically he was a magnetic healer, which was working really well. Anybody know who taught D.D. Palmer the magnetic healing concept?
I know he was working with a guy, Reverend Weed.
Okay, well, that's the next question. You just
Okay.
answered it. The next question was, who actually named chiropractic? It
that's
was
right.
Reverend Weed. He was a Greek scholar. But Paul Coster was the guy who was a very well-known magnetic healer, and D.D. learned from him. But here's a concept for you. What did they call D.D.? The medical profession back then, and then it followed through for many years.
Fishmonger.
A fish peddler.
Peddler.
And the reason
That's
why is
all they got.
because in those days people sold their wares pushing carts around, and that were there was Davenport, Iowa, but it was other places also. And so those days they sold that way. But no one ever said that he developed a refrigeration system way back then that kept the fish from spoiling. And BJ followed right along with that. BJ
Wow.
did the same thing, but not only with a small cart. BJ that's still used today with refrigeration trucks that you see on the road. How many people go to get some plastic plates when you go to a barbecue or something and has little places to put your, who started that one?
I think that was BJ, wasn't it?
BJ started that. He hated his food to go together, so he developed that plate. So
Oh
the
my
food,
goodness.
so many
didn't know
people,
that.
so many people don't know how fantastic these 2 people were. I mean, D.D. Palmer, if you think about it, and it really is cool. He was from the north. He was from Canada. Migrated with his family here. Migrated over to Davenport, Iowa. But here's one of the things: he had a bee farm, and raised honeybees, and it was called Sweet Home. Once about every 6 months, he would go to New York with a train car load full of honey, and he would come back to Davenport, and he always wore the big black hat, he had the long beard, he had a long coat, and he always wore black pants, and he had in his coat he had an inside pocket, and he put all the money he made cash back then in the pocket, and he'd walk around and tell people he had a tumor because the thing was sticking out with all money that he had made. So he did phenomenal stuff, and he also was very well known, kind of as a womanizer. BJ had 5 stepmothers, and like he said, every one of them was crueler than the one before. BJ, anybody know why BJ grew a beard? Because he was like 14 years old when he started practicing. He wanted to look older. He left Davenport for a while because people told him, if you come to our town, we could make you rich. And he said, and everybody tells us that. Yes. Someone said, hey, if you move down the road a minute, the chiropractors tell you that when you also want to go open a practice. I had that when I went to Kentucky. Hey, this town really stinks. Go to Bardesville, Kentucky. That's really a good town. So, but anyway, he went to Carnes, West Virginia. And back then, you didn't jump on a plane or drive your nice car. You usually got on a train, because traveling through the area on dirt roads back in the early 1900s took you forever. So he was on a train one day, and they were riding down there and on the train, and there was a group of guys in the back talking to him, and they kept looking at him. And finally one guy took the book and he said, is this a picture of you? And BJ said, yes, it is. And anybody know what that book was? A Drop of Ink Makes Millions Think. That was the title of the book. And they start talking to him about the book. And BJ said every time the train stopped somewhere, the people would get on. And BJ asked him, he said, where are these people going? They said, they're going to Carnes, West Virginia to see you. And when they got there, now this is typical BJ. When they got there, the train station was full of people. There was a band, and BJ got off the train, and the band played for BJ. And it's so funny. BJ said they walked across. They had a parade going across town. The people had rented the upstairs building of the Oddfellow, of the Oddfellow building for him. And BJ said he had his suitcase, he calls it his suitcase adjusting table. He set it up. He started adjusting patients. He said he would adjust 100 a day. And they charged $1, what did he say? $1 a pop.
$1 per.
Yeah, and so, back then he was making a lot of money. So consequently, pretty much, we have a really, really rich heritage of what's happened in our profession to get where we are. The sad part is that we seem to always fight with each other and argue with each other, except helping each other. But the whole thing was, when I asked the first question, who was the third person to help chiropractic get started, it was Harvey Lillard. He was a janitor in the building where BJ had the office. And of course, you all know the story. He was in a stupid cramped position. We got up to lift a box, something snapped in his neck. There's always a dispute about that. Someone says the neck, someone says the upper dorsal, but whatever, something snapped in the spine, and he lost his hearing. And BJ said that he was so deaf that he could not hear the wagon wheels and the horses on the first floor with his head out the window at the second floor of the building. And Dee must have been one great salesman, because he said, hey, I got this idea. He checked his neck, and there was a bone stick that popped out, subluxation. And he said, was that there before you were deaf? And he said, no. You can hear all this stuff, by the way. There's tapes that BJ talked about all this, and came out with the Michigan years, when I was in Michigan years ago. The Best of BJ, they're called. I don't even know if they still sell them. But they said it wasn't there, and BJ said, well, Dee said, if we reduce that, maybe you'll get your hearing back. Talked him into laying on a table and crunching him, like really punching him in the neck. So back then the adjustments were so bad, people would get a nosebleed. But he got his hearing back after 3 adjustments, and that was the start of chiropractic. And so Harvey Lillard, a black man, is just responsible for if there was no first chiropractic patient, there'd be no chiropractic profession. So consequently, that's where it all came from. So that's part number 1. You guys know the history. It's kind of weird to talk about it. I don't know where the book is. I got one of the green books here with me. The first book I wrote was a little green book, honey.
Behind you?
Oh, behind me, yeah. Here, I'll pass this around. You can take a look at it. This is the Life and Times of BJ Palmer. And This is the paperback. I also have, and this is a parched text paper with, tried to be a long time ago, was supposed to be gold lettering, which it used to be. I also have the hard copy, and that's parchment paper, and it's about that thick compared to this one. Tell you how this came about. We all have to go for license renewal. I had to. I don't have to anymore because I gave up 6 licenses in the national board because I wasn't going to practice anymore. But I went to the license renewal in Michigan, and we're sitting there, and it was so boring. Oh, it was terrible. And Grassham was sitting next to me, and I said, Ian, take my card and get it punched out for me. And he says, oh man, I don't want to get in trouble. I said, just take the card and just get it punched. He's all right. So I went to a movie, and I was sitting there in the movie, so much better than that professional stuff. And I'm sitting there in the movie, and all of a sudden it hits me. I'm sitting there watching this movie, The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. And they whacked me right in the head. Then they hit me in the head like The Life and Times of B.J. Palmer. I wrote the book, and you can check it out. I made one major mistake on that book. I sold my copyright, and all of my. It was pretty cool. It's in the Library of Congress with a number, and but I sold it to a young man. If anyone wants a book, I can always get it for you, or have you contact him. So that's pretty much most all the stuff about the whole start of chiropractic. But the thing about it is how do we build a practice? That's the hardest part sometimes. You know how chiropractic started, you know what you want to do, but how do you build a practice? Well, at the end, I have a paper for you, 11 ways to build your practice. And I'll tell you what, the first 3 are amazing to build a practice. I speak every year in South Carolina, in Columbia. It's my 35th year speaking there with never missing. Ken Jones and I started that seminar 35 years ago. Ken died a while back. His daughter Kathy runs it now, who's a fantastic young lady and chiropractor. I was speaking up there this last year, and I'm talking about an idea about what Joe and I were talking about as far as having chiropractors sponsor a pull-up event and how you can make money. Well, we had guys in there saying, I'm not doing pull-ups, 130 chiropractors, and I'm not doing pull-ups, I said, you don't have to do the pull-up. Finally, one guy, after about 4 of those coming up, one guy said, hey, stupid, you're not doing the pull-ups, he's doing the pull-ups. He said, that's good, because I can't do a pull-up. It was a disaster, but I'll explain to you how it works at the end. But one of the things that we have to do is we have to be chiropractors, and there are words that start out. I mean, we don't do treatments, we do adjustments. We talk about vertebral subluxation, we don't talk about popping a bone. If you have literature in your office that doesn't pertain to what you're doing, get it out, especially if you're practicing chiropractic. The problem is that people can watch all the stuff about medicine and derogatory stuff about drugs or chiropractors and talk all about the drugs, and they come to your office and they have like 20 minutes maybe waiting in the waiting room, and what are they reading? They're reading People magazine or Sports Illustrated that's 6 months old or a year old magazines. And you got to put some chiropractic stuff in there, so while they sit there, let them look at something that's good that they can learn from. And you have to get out and say who you are. You're a chiropractor. And a lot of times, way back in the old days when Tom and I started, it was like, what do you do? I'm a chiropractor. What? Oh, you're a chiropractor? No, don't say that loud. So the thing about it is, and Tom and I both had one really good friend. Jim Sigafus was my best friend. Jim and I did 2 things. Jim had the chicken barbecue in Thomasville, and I was the only guy dumb enough to go in the x-ray room all day long and develop the free x-rays. And then basically, there wasn't like we do now. That was a tank with and we dipped them in there, and when I came out, there was 2 things that were different about me. My fingernails were brown from the solution, and my eyes went, whoa, when you hit the light, because you're in there for hours developing x-rays. And so I was always at his chicken barbecue, and then because of that, I flipped over, and because I'm Italian, we started a spaghetti dinner, and Jim came to my spaghetti dinner. Here's the funny thing, can you imagine sitting there on a Sunday afternoon, listening to this nice music on the radio, and all of a sudden, Jim Miller, who was my good friend, was a manager of the radio station in Monroe, Michigan, comes on and says, now we're gonna hear a talk, a half-hour talk from a guy by the name of Jim Sigafus. And Siggy comes on and blasts out, and people are going, whoa, wait, what happened to the music? Who is this guy? Because he never pulled any punches. He and I were going to open a practice together, and we wanted to open it up in not Columbia, what is it? No, come on, my brain here. South Carolina, Charleston. And so we're looking around for a place to practice. And I said, look, we got to do this. We got to have a place to practice, but we have to have a place to have patients stay. So we said, okay, so we're looking for like an old motel. We pull up to the front of this church, and the church is basically vacant. And we go in and we're looking around, and on the side of the church, they had all these rooms where we could put people to rest after an adjustment. We were really into it. I mean, we had the idea of having a grounded, shielded booth. We had everything. I mean, in our heads, right? When we go in, there's a riot. We look at the church. It must have been a Catholic church because they had a railing up for communion. And Siggy walks up and he goes, oh man, this is going to be great. They kneel here, turn their head, and we adjust them. So many people we could adjust in a day. I said, you know how much trouble we could get in? And he said, we got a problem. I said, what's that? He said, they always have to turn, for me, they have to turn their head to the right because I'm better adjusting on that side. We're gonna get in trouble, man. So fortunately, Patsy, Jim's wife, was sane. And Mary, my wife, was sane, and they were very good friends. So they said, you ain't doing it. That's it. You ain't doing it. We're not talking about why you're not doing it. You're not doing this dumb thing. So we never did it. I'd go spend time with Siggy. It's so funny. He had a huge building on his property to build his chiropractic office. It was empty. He never used it. What he used was a converted two-car garage at his house. And he had a waiting room, and he had 2 adjusting rooms, and they were split down the middle, and he had a door between them. And he would run back and forth. Well, we'd go to lunch, we'd come back from lunch, and the parking lot and the driveway would be swamped with cars. I said, man, what's going on here? He said, oh, they're patients. I said, we got to get in there, man, and start adjusting. He said, no, Patsy will take care of them. Patsy would adjust the patients.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And then, this is really funny. At the end of the day, Patsy would go into the boxes on the wall, and she'd scoop out all this money and put it in big paper grocery bags. Mm-hmm. And then in the living room, they had this table about this high off the floor. It was a big round coffee table. And Patsy would say, kids, get in here. Now the 6 kids would all come in. They'd sit around this table on the floor. Patsy would take these bags and dump all this cash on the table. And the first thing you started hearing is one of them would say, I ain't counting the ones. So well, I want the 20s. You know? And it was a riot watching them. One day Sig said to me, come here, I'm gonna show you something. We walk in, he opens up this closet, this bedroom, and I see all these shoe boxes. I said, what's in the shoe boxes, man? You collecting shoes or what? He said, open one up. There were money, there were bills all stacked up this way in the shoebox. He didn't believe in banks. Yeah, so it was a trip. I mean, the time I spent with him was amazing.
Amazing.
He even got a Doberman because I had a Doberman, and he loved BJ. That was my dog's name. He named his that. So, but the thing about it is, there's all kind of stories that you can start out a little bit with chiropractic and break the ice with people like we're talking to you. But then you can get serious. Now, there's 2 things that I really want to show you. One came from Reggie. I'm sitting at DE, and I'm listening, and this is my first couple times, maybe first, second time. Roger Odell grabbed me by the hair and pulled me to DE. When he was sober, he was great, but he was a drinker. I would go places with Roger, and I think I would never get home. The worst thing to do is let Roger drive somewhere, because he ain't gonna leave until the bar closes, and when he drives, you're not sure you're ever gonna live for another day. But he dragged me to DE, and I went, and I just basically, man to man, as a person, not as a lover, I really fell in love with Jim Sigafus. But Reggie was so good. He was just the best speaker. He was really cool. He had that English accent that he was just enough to make you want to listen. And I'm sitting there one day, and Reggie says, let me show you how this all works. Well, he comes up with this number. By the way, I put this up here, Jay, so I'm not gonna write on the wall.
Okay.
Okay, I would start writing on it with this pen, and Jay's going, hell, he's right on my wall. So anyway, Reggie sits there and he goes, okay, how's this all start with this body? And he goes, okay, he says, two cells come together, male and female, okay? Now, what happens at that point? Now you got a male and female. Well, this little thing after a while starts coming down here. That's the notochord. So you have the brain and the spinal column. He says, that's the central nervous system. He said, so what happens next? He says, well, the brain gives off the energy to work, and the spinal cord carries the nerve energy to the body. He says, but this is very fragile, so it has to be protected. It's like taking a pipe and having a hole in the pipe, and the spinal cord goes down through that hole in the pipe. But if it's solid pipe, you have no bending, you have no motion, you have no movement. So innate intelligence, or universal intelligence, in its wisdom, puts a protection around it, but it divides it up into 24 little movable segments, which look like this thing here. And so what you have is you have the spinal bone, the vertebra, you have a space between them with a cushion, and then on the sides you have the spinal cord coming down the middle rather, and on the sides you have holes, little foraminums, and those nerves come out and go to different parts and organs of the body. So what happens in a vertebral subluxation? Vertebra, this, subluxation, twisting out of position. And Dick Plummer was always cool about it. He said, when you show your patient this, he said, look, that moves, that twists, right? A lot more than this does on the full spine. He said, put your finger in there.
Yeah.
Wham! Whoa, that hurts. Yeah, see? It hurts. That's what it does. He did it all the time to people. I spent time at Plummer's office. I'll tell you, Plummer was a really good guy, great chiropractor. In fact, he was the one that really put chiropractic on the map as far as adjusting horses. I mean, and this was funny. He said he would go to his person's farm, they'd charge him $100 to adjust their horse, and they'd have him cash. Then the same person would come in the office and charge him $20 and they'd complain about it. So yeah, so it's a whole lot better profitable to adjust horses or dogs than it is people, because people will do anything. But so anyway, so we have the space in here, which is a disc on each of these. It gives it like cushioning. But then you have the foramen magnum, or I'm sorry, foramen magnum is a big hole up here when it comes out. But then you have the foramen where this is going to go to different organs in the body, such as the heart, the kidneys, the lungs. I'm really a good artist, as you can tell. So as this energy flows down there, if the vertebrae get twisted out of position, they're going to put pressure on the nerve. And that pressure on the nerve is going to decrease the energy going to that part or that organ of the body. If it happens up here, then you do HIO adjustment. And if it happens here, it's going to cut down the energy going down the entire body, because everything passes through the foramen magnum, the first and second. And the only bones that are named are the first and second, the atlas and the axis. And so how do you explain this even easier and better? This one, I get in trouble when I speak up at the convention all the time, because they say, don't show that, that's so damn simple. Yeah, but it makes sense, simple is good. So here we go. We have, on the side of the house, you have a faucet. From that faucet, you got a hose going over to a sprinkler system. The sprinkler system has holes in it. You turn the water on, and the water flows from the faucet through the hose to the sprinkler system. Somebody comes along and they kink the hose. Water can't get through the kink, or a little bit less gets through the kink. What happens to the sprinkler system? The sprinkler starts to not spread the water like it should, because it's not getting the water to spread the water out. Same deal here. How come the heart's not working so good? Well, it's not getting the energy or the nerve impulse that it needs to work 100%. You might be getting 20%. You might be losing 20%. So here, what are you going to do? Well, let's be scientific. Let's put more holes in the sprinkler. Doesn't work. Let's make the holes bigger. Doesn't work. Let's move the sprinkler to part of the yard. It doesn't work. Let's fertilize around the sprinkler. Doesn't work. What do? Jerk, stupid. Get the kink out of the hose and let 100% of the water flow there, and it works the way it should work. Does it work any better? No, it works the way it was constructed to work. The water comes through and goes out into the sprinkler. Sprinkler works properly. You know, who's that comedian that talks about here's your sign, the stupid. They ever hear the story about he's going to sell a car, and he goes out with this guy and drives the car around, and he gets out. He says, I don't know why he did this. We get out of the car after he drives the car for about 20 minutes. He reaches over and he grabs the tailpipe. He goes, whoa, that hurts. They said, boy, well, there's your sign, stupid. So simple as this is, and as easy as to understand, chiropractors would get upset when I'd use it because, and I had a huge, probably half the size of that doorway right there, or that section right there of this. I had a young kid in art school in Monroe, Michigan, make for me. And it was this, and it talked about the kink right here. And people would come into the office, instead of saying, pop my back or crack my back, they'd say, I think I'm kinked. Okay, so you're kinked, you got a vertebral subluxation. So it worked every time. I couldn't believe how simple it was. And this big picture, and people would come and say, hey, see, there's your problem right there, you got a kink. I said, well, wait a minute, I don't have a hose. Yes, you do. The nervous system's the hose. And we had great time with that. I mean, it works well. And people can identify to this to a certain degree. Too much, but you have a full spine, it's a little easier. But when you put these two together, and they can see, now I know why the sprinkler don't. You go kink your hose, the hose doesn't get the water through, that sprinkler doesn't work right. Well, why isn't this the same thing? You subluxate the vertebra, and an impulse doesn't get to the organ. You're not getting the energy that you need to get there. So, questions at this point? Too simple? Okay, I want to mention one thing here. Where's that? I'm gonna move away from one thing real quick, the chiropractic. Anybody ever heard of Daniel Brinkley?
No.
Massive individual, just best individual I ever met. Daniel and I became great friends. Anyone here ever heard of the chiropractor Virgil Strain?
Yes.
Okay, Virgil was amazing. I walked around with severe pain between my shoulder blades for years. And I went down, Virgil called me and said, can you come down and speak? I went to Dallas to speak. Well, the day before the seminar, we were all sitting around talking, and first, anybody got any problem? And I said, yeah, my back, between my shoulder blades, everybody's always adjusting, not doing anything. It's killer, lay on the table. Lay on this incline. You ever seen him adjust on a DE? Oh my God, it's a rip head, it rip your head off. You lay it down on this slant bench, he cradles your neck with his hand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
And when he, wham, and he hit you so hard, you think that you're going to break your spinal cord. But man, I'll tell you, once he did that, I've never had the pain in between my shoulder blades since. And that's been about more than 12 years ago. So he called. So I get that. Virgil said, okay, so I want you to come every 4 months to Dallas. He said, I'll pay your expenses. And he said, but I won't give you money for speaking. I said, okay, I'll take that. So I said, well, I'll make you a deal too. I said, I'll come, you pay my expenses, and I want you to teach my 3 sons actually. Tim learned, all 3 of them did learn the Virgil Crane technique. So I'm in Dallas one day, and I walk into the cafeteria at the hotel or the restaurant, and there's 2 guys sitting there, and one guy said to me, hey, he said, are you here for the Crane seminar? And I said, yeah. He said, come on, join us. We are too. So I go and sit down, and I said, where do you guys practice? Oh, we don't practice. I said, what do you hear? And Tommy says, well, Daniel's a speaker here. And I said, oh, you're a speaker? Yeah. I said, what do you speak about? He said, I just tell my story, how chiropractic helped me. I said, what's your story? He said, well, he said, ever read anything in the Guinness Book of World Records? And I said, I looked at it, but I don't read it. Tommy says, he's in it. I said, for what? He says, he was dead longer than anybody. 28 minutes, he was dead. I said, whoa, tell me the story. So he tells me, Daniel starts telling me the story. And what happened was at a big rate, Aiken, South Carolina is where he lived. He has passed away since, but Aiken, South Carolina. So they had this gigantic rainstorm. And Daniel's sitting on the bed, literally sitting on his bed, talking to his best friend, Tommy, who's there. And lightning hits the wire, and then it says, darn, he says, it went right instead of left. If it would have went left, it would have hit Tommy, it hit me. They hit him, and literally 25,000 volts hit him. He was blown out of his shoes. They were welded. The shoes had, the soles had nails in them. They were welded to the floor. He said he could feel himself bounce off of the ceiling, and he hit the bed, and he said his whole insides were just burning like crazy. And they got an ambulance over there, and big rainstorm. They shove him out into the ambulance, and he's laying in the ambulance and his body, and he's up here looking down at his body soaking wet because of the rain and stuff. And he says, I remember thinking, I'm a lot better looking than that. So they get him to the hospital. The hospital's full. They have no place to put him. They put him on a gurney. They pronounce him dead. They cover him with a sheet and they push him in the hall. And that's where he is. Well, a few minutes later, Tommy and Daniel's wife come running in. Where is he? What's going on? What's happening? Oh, he passed away. Where is he? He's over there. Okay, can we see him? Well, not right now, but we'll wheel him down and then you can come and see him. I said, okay. So he's laying there, and he says he's laying there and he hears him talking, and he can't move. He's dead, but he can't move. And he's blowing the sheet. And the sheet's not going up and down until Tommy said, hey, it's moving. They went over and moved it. Anyway, long story, all the stuff that he did, but his insides were completely burnt out, really bad. He started going to a chiropractor, saved his life. He started then going around and talking. This is an important thing. We talk about near-death experiences. He talks about his near-death experiences. And right at the time, he didn't know what he was having, and he couldn't understand what was going on in his life. And then Raymond Moody comes up with his book, Life After Life. And he has a picture, and he's doing a seminar in Columbia, South Carolina. Danny don't live too far from there. Aiken's not too far away. So he goes, and Raymond Moody had just started this, and Daniel starts talking to him, and they become friends, and he starts saying, tell me what you saw, what you did, whatever. And so Daniel explains it like this, and it's so cool. He says, when you die, you don't only see what happened in your life review, you feel it. And you also feel it one person removed. And he said, you have to realize they did a movie on him, and it was on something. I think it was on Fox, and they laid it all out, and they talked about that he was a big kid, and when he was young, he was kind of a bully. He would take little kids' money, beat them up. He was really a bad guy, and he said when he died, he saw all that and felt it all. He felt what those kids felt. That's bad. So anyway. So he said he was a sniper. He said one morning he had to shoot a general, and his general came out in front of all of his men, and he said he took aim and he shot the general in the head, pretty much blew his head apart. And he said when he did his life review, he felt not only what the general felt, he felt what the general's men felt and the general's family felt. He said, so I'm telling you, he said, that you do a life review, you feel it and you see it. So fast forward a little time, him and Tommy are at his house one day. The lady next door had just gotten a divorce. Her husband was an idiot. He came and he started yelling for her, and she came out of the house, and he whacked her, and she hit the ground. And Daniel sees this, and he goes over, and he said, I hit that guy so hard I about knocked his head off. And he's laying on the ground, and Daniel goes right into the ribs with a kick. And all of a sudden, he says, it hit me. That is really going to hurt when I see that when I'm dead. So what his point was that whatever we do, it's kind of like Ghost, the movie Ghost, when Patrick Swayze dies and all these little entities come, and they're good entities, and he says, it's really cool, Molly, all the love you have inside you take with you. And when the other guy died, the bad guy died, all these little things just pulled him up and just pulled him out of the window, and he was screaming and yelling. So whatever we do here, we're going to see it and feel it according to Daniel. And there's a couple books written about him. There's a lot of stuff on him. So anyway, just bring that up as, we're very, to a degree, chiropractors are kind of metaphysical. And BJ said one time that he wished he would have never gave us and fought for the title of doctor for us. That we would have been a whole lot better off as a minister, helping people. and adjusting people. And that brings me to one point that I bet you don't know. If you can name the minister that healed people that spent 2 years at Universal Chiropractic College in St. Louis.
What's his name?
I can't think of it either, that's why I don't put you in.
You owe us a book then.
Pardon?
You have to give us a book.
Okay. Oh wait, let me think real quick. Come on, Tom.
Yeah, it's right there. I've seen him.
Yeah, you've seen him, and he was in school with Dr. Reinhardt. Well,
Yeah, Otto Reinhardt, yeah.
Yeah, not Billy Graham, but it was the other one.
No. He kind of had a chubby face.
Yeah. Anyway, let me tell you. Well, between the two of us, we'll know it before the night's over.
It may be next year.
But anyway, if you ever watched him heal people, he did a master cervical rotary break. People would get there, either stand up or kneel down, and when he would heal them, he would grab them like this, and he'd whoa, and do a master cervical break.
Yeah, I remember.
And I can't remember who it was. And he spent 2 years at Universal Chiropractic College. What, Tom? Help me out. I'll tell you.
We're all getting old.
Yeah. I mean, there was a guy, a different minister. His name was Ernest Angeli. I don't know if you've ever heard out of Akron, Ohio. Always wore a white suit, and he would hit you on the head, and you'd fall over sometimes or nothing sometimes. I don't know how it works, but Anyway, we have this black friend, Guy, and Guy always would come over and spend time with my kids. He was the wrestling coach. Tony was a 3 times state champ in high school, and so he always would say, Dr. Panza, why don't we go over to Akron sometime and just see what happens when he hits you in the head? I said, okay, we'll go sometime. So he'd always talk about it. So finally one night, I said, Guy, let's go this week. He said, all right. He said, Tony, you want to come? My son, yeah. Ernie, you want to come? No. Tim, no way. So the 3 of us go to Akron, Ohio, and we're sitting there. Now, you have to realize, I don't mean to be prejudiced about this, but black people get very nervous, something they're not sure about. And we're sitting, and I said, okay, Guy, he's going to call people down to the altar. Let's go. No, I'm not going. I'm not going. I said, we came all the way over here for you to see what it feels like. I'm not going. I said, Guy, come on. Tony said, well, I'm not going, Dad. I said, you don't have to. Guy has to. Come on, help me get him out of the chair. So we go over, and we're standing against the wall, lined up down the wall. And he's doing people, and Guy's going, I don't want to do this. I said, no, you're going to do it. I want to do it. You're going to do it. So we get right there, and they're lined up, and one lady comes up. It's a heavy-set lady, and he asks her what they want. And the lady says, this is what she wanted. I want a healing for me and my baby. And just as she's saying, I want a healing for me and my baby, he whacks her in the head, and she goes, I want a healing for me and my baby, and she falls on the floor. Man, you've never seen a black guy run so fast. I chased him up the aisle. We came back down. He said, I want to do it. I said, Guy, you're going to do it. We came all the way over here for you to do this. So he sat there, and he got hit in the head, and he looked at me and said, nothing happened. I said, fall backwards. No. So anyway, it was a riot. Did you think of the name yet?
I see him.
I can't either.
He was on TV forever.
Uh-huh.
He was on TV all the time on Sunday.
Okay, I want to. My band of white over here is going to pass a few things
They
out.
already have it.
They have that?
Yeah.
They have this one?
No.
Okay, why don't you give everyone this one? And this is something one day I was sitting around, and I just thought, I needed to quit cheating. I was sitting around, I thought I'd just put something together, so I put this together. And it's just a prayer that I made up. It said, Lord, I do give thee thanks for the abundance that is mine now. I now release all negative people, circumstances, and things from my life and replace them with only positive and good. I know that good and wonderful things come to me each and every day. I also realize that my best is yet to come. Every day and every way, I am getting better and better and better. I live a charmed and blessed life. And I got that hanging on my bedroom wall with a lot of other positive statements. I don't know if you've ever heard of the group, the Optimist Club. They've just kind of, Friends of the Youth, they've just kind of gone by the wayside lately. I mean, they just couldn't, all these different clubs, civic clubs, are really struggling to have members because the young people don't want to join. Even if you go to church, you'll see that the churches are much more older people than younger people.
And more women than men, by the way.
I know why you're going to church.
Why?
There's more women than men.
No. Been there, done that. Thank you very much.
Okay, here's, what Lee's gonna pass on now.
Oral Roberts?
Oral Roberts.
Oral Roberts.
Give that man, give that man a look.
Very good.
I earned that one.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Your face is all red.
I know, it's like, I see him.
Oral Roberts. He was a minister and did healing, and he did master cervical rotary break. Okay, I have, I think I have like 30, I have 4 pages of this, but I just pulled the first page off because I knew I wouldn't have time to do all of them. But if you look at them, and if you want any information on any of them, I'll go through them kind of rapidly. It just says ways to promote and market your practice that is fun, easy, and profitable. The first one, I can't tell you how well that works. And it's basically a minister's day. This is it's the fastest way to build your practice. Ask me how to start a minister's day. I'll tell you how to start it. Ministers, basically, what happened is a minister came to me as a patient 41 years ago. I was in Williamsburg, it was at Williamsburg, Virginia. And he was a part-time minister, African-American, had a janitor business on the side. Him and his wife cleaned houses. He was really hurt. So he's like, you gotta see me, I don't have a whole lot of money. So I took care of him, and I said, John, I said, I wanna make you a deal. And he said, what's the deal? I said, I want you to come every Thursday for the next, 6-7 weeks. And they said, we can't afford it. I said, I didn't say you had to afford it. I'm doing it for free. And I want you to bring your family with you. Any of them don't want to come, or you want to get them in. He said, yeah, but how? I said, no, this is it. I said, I'm going to ask you now. I'll do that for you. I want you to do something for me. The next time you go to your ministers' meeting group here in Williamsburg, tell them that if they have a problem, any minister and their family can come in for free adjustment any Thursday afternoon our hours were like 3 to 6 in the afternoon. Anytime between 3 and 6, their whole family. Man, I'll tell you what, John Gray and I are still best friends. There's a picture on my phone that will show you a room full of over 2,500 chairs, maybe 5,000 chairs. And there's an easel outside that has speakers. There's a black minister, not John, but somebody else, and then he's going to be the president of the biggest black church organization in the country this coming year. And there's a picture of me there, and it says, Dr. Ernie Panza, chiropractor, Williamsburg, Virginia. And I was the only white person there, I swear to you. And there was a place that I could sit and just listen as people came up, walking into this room. And I was sitting there listening, and I'll bet you about out of every 30 people, somebody said, who's the white guy? I mean, it was like really different to them, And I spoke there, and John said, hey, I'm going to do the first part of the talk, I was the first speaker. He said, I got a problem. I said, what? He says, can you stay overnight? I says, can you pay me? He said, I'll do anything. You got to stay overnight. I said, why? He said, I need you to speak tomorrow. The other minister, the bishop can't come, and we don't have a speaker. I said, I'll stay. So I did, and I didn't charge him for it or anything. I never charged John. He's just too cool of a guy. But that started the biggest and the easiest way to start a practice. I mean, look, you go to church, and if the minister says, buy a Lincoln, or a good car, chances are some of the people in that congregation is going to go buy a Lincoln. If he said, I went to this doctor, and I really got good results, as Dr. Joe Curso, I really did good. He said, if you have any problems, go see my friend, and I'll tell you what, they'll come in. The second one is what we already talked about. Just replace the information in your office that doesn't speak of chiropractic or even natural health. That's better than having a 10-year-old filled in stream and collecting dust in your office and nobody's looking at it anyway. The next one, of course, is the lay lectures, the patient lay lectures. When I opened up in that little house in Fancy Gap, Virginia for $100 a month, I decided, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna see if it really works. BJ did lay lectures every week and built, look what he built. I mean, anybody know how many employees he had when he died? 750. He started the largest printing company west of the Mississippi River. They brought carloads of paper into there every week, train carloads full of paper, biggest ever. Ronald Reagan worked for him and ran WOC, Wonders of Chiropractic. He started Technicolor, which was the first time anybody took black and white and made Technicolor. So it was a company out of California that he started.
It's a nice letter, Doctor, from Ronald Reagan to you in your book here.
Yeah. So it was he was amazing. So everything he did spoke of chiropractic, and everything talked about chiropractic. And if we're gonna be a chiropractor, we should at least talk about it. Speak. Okay, this is the easiest one of all. Just speak to clubs, churches, and schools and organizations. Every one of them. I mean, probably right here you have 100 different civic clubs in this area. Every one is looking for a speaker every week, 20 minutes. You don't have to say, I'm a chiropractor and I'm gonna come talk about chiropractic. Because a lot of people will say, well, I don't have a backache. But you gotta sometimes come through the back door. You're gonna speak about what's the new fad, what's the new thing? Is it stress? Is it migraine headaches? Pick something that you know you can talk about, know about it, and yet somebody will come into your office. Every time I spoke at a civic club, I would gain at least, on an average, 3 patients. Now, they weren't all from the civic club. Like if this is a civic club, it wouldn't be you and you coming in. It could be you, your wife, your child. But always, I got 3 new patients, and it cost me nothing. I got a free meal. That's what it cost me. I had to eat that kind of food, which I don't eat. But anyway, so the next one is this is Sigafus and I. Sigafus did the chicken barbecue. I did the spaghetti dinners, and we had a good time.
Didn't he do spaghetti too?
Pardon?
Didn't he do spaghetti?
No.
I remember the chicken.
I didn't do the chicken, he didn't do the spaghetti. Let me tell you a story. I had this patient, it was sad. Her neck was like this. She walked kind of like this. And we were working on her at the office, and one day we're sitting in my motorhome and in the parking lot of my office, and here comes Clara, like this, walking across the parking lot. She goes, God, she needs a chiropractor. I said, see, she's one of my patients. She said, what are you doing? Did you do that to her? So he was the funniest guy. When you go to DE, you probably heard the hog story, right? About the pig story?
No.
Oh my God, you heard it.
Go ahead.
Okay, he has a patient, lady calls up, says, my husband's really sick. Can you come out and see him because I can't get him into town? Well, he has a little Corvair, which is about this high off the road. And so he says he's driving out there, and the car's so low, he couldn't hardly get over the ruts in the road. And he finally got there. He looks on the porch and he said, well, that's a weird looking dog. And it's a pig. And he's looking at the pig. This is Sigafus. He's looking at the pig's looking at me, and the pig's winning. so finally the lady comes out and chases the pig away. He goes in, guy's laying on the bed going, lady says, what's wrong with him? Sigafus says, he's sick.
He's what?
He's sick.
Good diagnosis.
He said a good point. He filled his little medical bullcrap bag with marbles. So when they walked, they'd hear stuff running around him, and they think he was important. He had marbles in his bag. What's wrong with him? He's sick. Anyway, let's speak at the health clubs. bring an outside speaker in sometime. The Bible says this, never a prophet from your own country. And it's true. You can be the best speaker, the best anything, the best whatever, and then you do something and nothing happens. Bob Harrington, remember Bob Harrington? The minister of Bourbon Street, always wore a white suit, a real big guy. He's passed away, but he was so funny. One time he was preaching on Bourbon Street, and some guy came along and he threw beer on him. And Bob Harrington looked at him and said, "You're so lucky I'm saved." He wanted to kill him. Yeah. But he used to go around and speak. But the funny part with Bob Harrington, my friend Bill Scanlon's had him come when I was living in Williamsburg. And Bob Harrington had several things. He wanted $2,500 to come and speak. He wanted a white limousine to pick him up. He wanted to be put in the best hotel in the area, and nobody could afford him. But he made a lot of money. This is give your cell phone number, whether you want to do that or not, to your patients. A lot of times they need you and they can't get you. And number 9 is probably the second best thing I ever did, and that was home lay lectures. And basically what it is, you can't get I would do a lay lecture, as we all did, and you get some people to come, but most of the time people don't show up. So I said to the lady one time, I said, "Julie, this is a true story." I said, "You have any friends?" She said, "Of course I have friends." I said, "Well, why don't you bring them in? They won't come." I said, "Why don't you have them just come to a lecture so they can learn about what we do?" They won't come. I said, "Would they come to your house for coffee and cake?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Can I come over when they're there and bring the spine over and talk to them?" She said, "Whoa, great idea, yeah." So what I did, I didn't do a lot of lay lectures in my office. I did lay lectures in people's homes, and it really works. So anyway, church meeting. So, how many knew Carl Tompkins from down in South Carolina? Carl was great.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a real story quick about Carl. Carl had a bad heart in his later years, and he's passed about 2 years ago. And the sorriest day of my life, because Carl and I were great friends. And so one day, Gloria, his wife, calls me. She says, "Ernie, Carl would like to see you." I said, "Well, yeah, what's going on?" She said, "He's in the hospital." I said, "Oh," I said, "Okay, well," I said, I'll come." So I drove up from Florida. I went to Charleston to see him, and get in the room, and he's dressed, but he's laying on the bed. And he said, "I hate it here." He said, "The food's terrible." Carl liked food. I said, "Well," I said, "You want to go out and get something?" He says, "Yeah, let's go." So we head out the door. I had a motorhome. I had a lot of motorhomes. Got in the motorhome, drove down to wherever we went. I don't know. He had a great meal. We drive back, and there's 2 police cars in the parking lot by the front door. The lights are flashing and everything. We walk in, and the one lady goes, "There he is!" "Whoa, who?" "There he is, there's Dr. Tompkins." I said, "Carl, were you allowed to get out?" He said, "No, but you never asked me that." They were going to arrest me damn near. I mean, they were really angry. I said, "Carl, it's like I kidnapped you." I went back a couple weeks later to see him. He said, "Can we go eat?" I said, "Can you get a pass?" He says, "Watch this." He said, "I'm going to eat." He said, Dr. Tompkins, you're not allowed." He said, "I'm going to eat. My friend's taking me. It's his fault. He's making me go." "Carl, shut up." We went to eat. Go ahead, go eat. So anyway, and then community meetings, just rent a hall and have somebody and get together with other chiropractors and just get a bunch of people come to the hall one time and have a couple chiropractors come. We did. Roger Odell and I did this constantly, all over the state of Michigan. And we'd rent a hall, Roger and I. The only problem with that is when you got Roger on the stage, you ain't getting them off. Mm-hmm. So Roger, you go last, because you're done. Roger's on the stage. So, but that's just some of the things you can do. Couple other things, and I'll shut my mouth and give you. People, did you hand us up, babe? Hand them to people?
I'm ready.
You're ready. You're good, man. You're great.
Did you say good man?
Yes, she is. And then the other one.
Thank you very much.
And this one here too. Okay.
Thank you.
That one. Yeah.
Jimmy Gregg?
Pardon?
Jimmy Gregg?
No. Jimmy Gregg.
Is he still alive?
He still practices.
Is he?
Yep.
Still seeing more than the associates.
Well, I'm not surprised about that. That's awesome. Do you see him?
No, somebody I know saw him. Kenny, someone, I don't remember.
That was
She used to work for him, right?
I work for him, yeah.
She can say.
You already
I
gave
said,
that?
Oh, if I see him?
yeah.
I think I saw him at a seminar about 5 years ago, but that was the last time I heard.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's a
Still
good guy.
practicing.
Got along good.
Okay, just two last quick things. Not trying to sell you something, trying to tell you something, I guess, or share something. Everybody asks me, how old are you at the gym? I said, I'm 80 years old. They said, no, you're not 80. Yeah, I'm 80 years old. Well, you can do 618 pull-ups in an hour. How do you do that? I said, well, my lifestyle. I've been a vegetarian since 1964. I work out every day. I take care of myself, and I take some good products. And what do you take? I said, oh, well, I take a friend of mine, Greg Gunderson, has a company, 9 years old, next week actually. And Greg, it's funny how I met Greg. I was driving to California, going through Kansas City, and somebody called me and said, hey, where are you? And I said, I'm going through Kansas City. He said, there's a guy in Kansas just starting a new company, new health products. Why don't you stop and talk to him? So I called Greg out of the blue. That's how I ever meet everybody. Someone said, how did you meet Wally Amos? I called him on the phone, and how did you meet so many people? Mark Victor Hansen, called him on the phone. So anyway, I call this number a friend of mine gave me. I call, Greg answers the phone, I tell him who I am. He says, where are you? I said, I'm going through Kansas City. He said, are you on 70 or 40? I said, I'm on 70. He said, I can meet you in the middle of Kansas. I forget the name of the town, there's a crossroad. He came down there to meet me for lunch. About 2 hours later, he brings in a box of products. He says, I just started the company. I said, no, I heard. What do you got? He said, well, I got Phytazon. He said, that's an anti-aging product that helps 35 types of inflammation, and it's great with arthritis. He said also a couple of days, a bunch of other things. I said, what do you got for the heart? He said, I got Clear Heart. I said, what's Clear Heart? He told me about Clear Heart. Clear Heart, I've been taking those two products for 9 years, 2 capsules a day, and I swear to you, not stopping. And people say, how can you do 618 pull-ups in an hour at 80 years old? I don't know. I get chiropractic care. I watch what I eat. I got a beautiful lady with me all the time, with Lee. I have a great time. We get along well, and I take the products. So he says to me this about a month ago, and this is Cherry Blaster, and he said, Ernie, start taking it and see what happens to you. Okay, here's the story. I swear this is a true story. I hit 200 pull-ups an hour, and I started slacking off. I didn't want to do over 200. I knew I could, but I didn't want to. I took this product for 2.5 weeks each day. Tastes great, mix it with water, juice, whatever you want, and I drink it every morning. One day I walked in and I said to the guy I work out with, my Marine friend, Colonel, and I said, he said, what are you going to do today? Because he does pull-ups, I do pull-ups. He said, what are you going to do today? I said, I don't know, I'm going to see what I can do. I did 350 pull-ups in 45 minutes. I mean, and I called Greg and I said, Greg, this stuff really works. He said, okay. He said, send me a video of you doing pull-ups. That's what we did yesterday, but it didn't come out very good. He says, you're going to be the poster boy for us for certain products. He says, I take about 8 of his products, but always I swear to you, I take Phytazon and I take the Clear Heart every day, and then I also take another one, which is the stem cell replacement. I don't know if you know much about stem cells. Stem cells are made and housed in our bone marrow, and when the body needs something done, it will call more stem cells out. They will go to the part of the body that needs them the most, and stem cells can change their self to any cell in the body. So in other words, even a brain cell, if your brain cells are going weak on you, well, I was in an auto accident a couple months ago, day before Thanksgiving. I was stopped at a red light and a car slammed into me at about 55 miles an hour and my blood pressure went to, I forget, way up there. I mean, way up. And I started taking stem cell, and because the one neurologist told me I had he said, dude, you got some wires burnt out up there. I said, well, I'm going to fix that. I start taking the stem cell. I don't have a problem anymore. And the last thing, and this is great. And if you wanna get known in your community, this will make it possible. If you wanna help a charity, a company, an organization, Tom, did you get one? Okay. A church, you can do it with this, and I'll tell you what it is. It's basically a pull-up event that I do. And I do the pull-ups, and some people, every time we talk about it, I talk about it to groups, they say, well, I'm not doing pull-ups. Well, no, you dummy, I'm doing the pull-ups. You're just trying to get people to pledge to whatever corporate company you want, or church that you want. So basically, you would go to, and I was talking to Joe about it just a while ago, you would go to somebody, your church, a civic club you belong to, a veterans organization, and you say, I have a way that you can make some money, and it's not gonna cost you a dime. How's that? I got this crazy guy that'll do 100 pull-ups in 1 hour or less. And I say less because yesterday I did 100 pull-ups, and then I was goofing off at the gym, and my friend Mike said, hey, we gotta do that video. Can you up for 100 pull-ups again? I said, yeah. Did 100 pull-ups a second time in 8 minutes. So that's why I say, or less in an hour. But so what you do is you say, hey, I got this church that wants to do it. Like Steve was gonna do it. A pastor that lives down in Holly Hill, where I live, down by Daytona Beach, and comes up here for a Bible study. And Steve's church is gonna do it. And basically what you do is, like I told Steve, I'll give you the information to hand out. You give the information to all your people in your congregation. Ask them to give it to more people. The veterans are fun to work with because I say, look, here's our chance to get even with our grandkids. Remember how much you put in walking around the track, buying chocolate, buying cookies? Now, tell them, look, I paid all this money, I gave you all this money to help you out, now help me out, and at least, offer 20 cents a pull-up. At 20 cents a pull-up, when they do 100 pull-ups, they're gonna owe 20 bucks. Big deal. So, and the money don't come to me, the money goes to them, directly to them. I don't see the money, I don't touch the money, I don't count the money. So if you're interested, get with me and I'll give you all the information. I'll talk to the people for you that you're dealing with and explain it all to them. I'll get the letter written up for the event for you, and on that letter, it's your office name is on it. You're doing this. I have a friend, Steele, who runs the radio station. I was telling him about this a couple months ago. He said, "Get me the information." He said, "I can give you free advertising on PSA for this program." So it doesn't even cost you. And the good thing is, on the letter they hand out to everybody is your office name. And on the radio station, your office is being held on it. The church paper that I went to was not even a church paper. It's called The Observer down at Daytona Beach. They ran it. They ran my name. If I had a chiropractic office or a company of some sort, it would have been on there, but it just said Dr. Panza's notice. And we're going to do it for the new Veterans Museum and Education Center. Lee and I were there on Saturday, and we're supposed to do that for them Saturday because it was their first anniversary, but they didn't get me the stuff in time. So now we're going to do it on 4th of July. I also, on the 4th of July, we're talking to Purple Hearts and the guys who have been wounded, and we're also talking to VFW in Ormond Beach. So, any questions, anything at all? I'm going to shut my mouth, answer any questions you have. And
one of the things I want to say on the lectures, I would say that's probably one of the most, I don't know how many times we've been chiropractors who say, I'm a chiropractor. Oh, would you crack my neck? Have you heard that? 50,000 times? That's your fault.
Yeah.
Okay, not the first time, but the second time. So the way we did it, I didn't do home. I didn't think about that because you never told me. Okay. But we had a policy where they gave me any, they don't usually give me trouble, but if they had a little doubt, I said, look, you have to accept me as your doctor, but I have to accept you as my patient. And that's a true story. And I was blunt. I said, if you don't come, I can't help you. Because there's going to be one more, will you crack my neck?
Yeah.
Or is that all you're going to do today, doc? That's another thing they say all the time.
Yeah.
We don't have that. So just be the one that sticks to your principle of chiropractic and teach that principle. There's another saying that says sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Right.
And all those,
How good you're gonna feel or anything about it, but not the adjustment. Well, a lot of times also, people will say, if I come to you, can you get me well? Probably not, maybe so, I don't know. I'm not the healer. I can't take responsibility for not getting you well. I can't take credit for getting you well. And what do you do? How much do you smoke? How much do you weigh? What kind of food do you eat? You know, and they have to have responsibility, and we as chiropractors don't do that. We do two things. We don't push any responsibility or put any responsibility on them. You come, we'll adjust you. But they're smoking a pack of cigarettes every day, or they're drinking booze every day. You know, so that's the big thing. The other thing is we minimize everything. You ever go to a medical doctor and you need a surgery, or they do a surgery, they go, oh my God, we got it just in time. That gallbladder was ready to explode in my hand, you know, or you need this, or you're gonna die if you don't get in here or take this drug. So what do we say? Oh yeah, well, you got a problem with the nerves going to the heart. We can fix that, don't worry about it. Okay, well, I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm not gonna come and see you then. I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, and like Greg always talks about on the conference calls, he talks about, you know, the first symptom of a heart attack is the heart attack. Yeah, so we got to get to prevention also. That's maintenance care. Maintenance care is prevention. You know, they come in for prevention care, they're going to do much better than if they just wait until something happens. And then they're going to find their way to the medical doctor. Then they're going to find the medical doctors are going to get them on drugs, and they'll become a cash cow, especially with diabetics. You know, they're a cash cow. I mean, it's just like, take this, take this, take this. Tell you a real funny story. Got this really good friend. He was so upset. He talked to me for years about how his diabetes is under control because he takes metformin.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it for years. He called me about 3 weeks ago. You know who I'm talking about, Jimbo. He called me. He is so angry. I said, what's wrong? He said, I went to one of those clinics. He said, they help you male performance. I said, so what? I said, I ain't going, but what happened? Well, he tells me this whole long story, and it was horrible. But the guy said to him during the consultation, what drugs are you on? He said, well, I take this, and I take this, and I take metformin. The guy goes, there's your problem. He said, what's my problem? Metformin causes problems for males. He goes, you're kidding. He said, I've been taking it for years. I thought it was saving my life. I'm going to kill the guy. So anyway, thank you.
thank you, Bill. That's good.
Wait.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Say hi to your mom for me.
I will do it. She's back in Miami.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
All right. Next month, we have Vicki coming to speak about upper cervical, July 15th. Then we have Jessica Hudson, August 12th, speaking about pediatrics. I know Frank is going to be at that one for sure. And then we have Eddie Martinez. I think he's the current president of the FCS. He's going to be speaking September 23rd. We hope you guys can all join us, okay? Have a great night from St. Augustine. It's been Saturday Night Live.
Do you guys know how Saturday Night Live started?
No.